The air in courtroom 7 was cold and stale. Gina Park stood straight, her dark eyes fixed on Judge Kim. Her hands were steady, but inside, her heart beat fast. The courtroom was full of people, most with plain genetic codes. They stared at her black designation patch, the small symbol on her collar that marked her as different. Biological Adaptive Combat Knight, Judge Kim said, reading her file with clear distaste. Black designation, level 4 modifications. He looked up at Gina as if she were something dirty. You people think your special genes put you above our laws. Gina said nothing. At 35, she had faced this kind of talk many times. Her black designation meant her body was made stronger to survive the harsh places humans now lived among the stars. It also meant people like Judge Kim would always see her as less human. Your Honor, said Han, her lawyer, Ms. Park has no past crimes. She is a single mother with a clean record until now. Judge Kim waved his hand as if shooing away a bug. The facts are clear. Security cameras show the defendant in the medical storage room at New Hope Hospital at 22:47 on the night of March 3, 2187. She left with a bag of Class A medical supplies worth over 50,000 credits. Gina finally spoke. My daughter needed the medicine. I had already paid for it. The judge's face turned red. Silence. The payment you claim to have made is not in any hospital record. Han stepped forward. Your Honor, we have shown proof that the payment system had a technical problem that night. 5 other patients also had their payments lost by the system. Yet none of them decided to break into the storage room, Judge Kim said with a cold smile. They waited for the problem to be fixed, like law-abiding citizens. A tear slid down Gina's cheek. Not for herself, but for her daughter. 7-year-old Sue was still sick, still needing the medicine that Gina had been arrested for taking. What would happen to her now? The court was quiet as Judge Kim prepared to give his decision. In the back row, an old man with silver hair watched closely. Nobody paid attention to him, but his eyes missed nothing. Gina Park, this court finds you guilty of theft of critical medical supplies, breaking and entering a secure medical facility, and using your genetic advantages to override security systems, Judge Kim announced. Whispers filled the room. Using genetic advantages to override security. That charge hadn't even been mentioned during the trial. It was a special charge used mainly against BLXC case. This was not just a simple theft, Judge Kim continued. This was a crime that shows the danger of allowing enhanced individuals to live among normal humans without proper controls. Han jumped to his feet. Objection. This is prejudicial and has no place in sentencing. Overruled, Judge Kim said with a small smile. I am simply stating facts relevant to public safety. The old man in the back row made a note on his tablet. Given the serious nature of these crimes and the clear danger the defendant poses to society, this court sentences you, Gina Park, to 125 years in the Erebus labor colony. A shocked gasp swept through the courtroom. Erebus was the worst place in the system, a mining colony on a toxic moon where few survived more than 10 years. Your Honor, Han protested. This is far beyond sentencing guidelines. The maximum for these charges is 8 years. The guidelines are just that, guidelines, Judge Kim said coldly. Black designations require special consideration, as their enhanced abilities make them greater threats. Gina didn't flinch. She had known what might happen when she entered that hospital storage room a week ago. Her daughter was dying. The system had lost her payment, and no one would help. What choice did she have? Do you have anything to say before being taken into custody? Judge Kim asked. Gina looked him straight in the eyes. My daughter needed medicine. Just 6 words, but they rang through the courtroom. Several people lowered their heads, ashamed. Take her away, Judge Kim ordered, already gathering his things to leave. As the security officers moved toward Gina, Han whispered to her, This isn't over. Trust me. Gina nodded slightly, but her face showed no hope. She had seen too many blacks disappear into the labor colonies. No one ever came back. The old man in the back row stood up and slipped out of the courtroom. In the hallway, he pressed his finger to his ear, activating his comlink. Mater Lee, it's done. Kim sentenced her to 125 years on Aravis, just as you predicted. He listened for a moment. Yes, sir. Your daughter took it exactly as you said she would. Very brave woman. He ended the call and looked back at the courtroom doors. Few people knew that Mayor Jin Lee of Novus Colony was the father of Gina Park. The mayor had kept that connection secret for many years to protect her. But now, that secret was about to become a powerful weapon. In a private room at New Hope Hospital, Sue Park sat up in bed, her small face pale but her eyes bright. The medicine was working at last. A nurse checked her vital signs and smiled. You're doing much better today, she said. Your fever is gone. When can I see my mom? Sue asked. It had been a week since her mother left to get more medicine and never returned. The nurse looked uncomfortable. Soon, I hope. Your grandfather will be here later to explain everything. Sue frowned. Grandfather? I don't have a grandfather. Before the nurse could answer, the door opened. A tall, dignified man with silver hair stood there, the same man who had been in the back of the courtroom. Hello, Sue, he said gently. My name is Jin. I'm your mother's father. Sue stared at him in confusion. Mom said her parents were dead. Jin sighed and sat in the chair beside her bed. She believed that for many years. It's a long story, and one day you'll know all of it. But for now, all you need to know is that I'm here to take care of you while your mother is away. Where is she? Sue demanded. Why didn't she come back? Jin took the child's small hand in his. Your mother is very brave. She broke some rules to get you medicine, and now she's in trouble for it. But I'm going to fix everything. Are you really my grandfather? Sue asked, still doubtful. Jin smiled and pulled out his tablet. He showed her a photo of a younger version of himself holding a baby. This is your mother, the day she was born. Sue studied the picture. Why didn't Mom ever talk about you? Because I asked her not to, Jin said honestly. I'm the mayor of this colony, and there are people who might try to hurt your mother to get to me, so we kept it a secret. Sue's eyes widened. You're the mayor? The one on the big screens downtown. Jin nodded. Yes, and now I'm going to use that position to help your mother. But I need you to be brave, like her. Can you do that? Sue thought for a moment, then nodded firmly. I can be brave. I'm a black too, you know. I know, Jin said, his eyes sad. I know exactly what that means on this colony, but things are about to change. In his chambers, Judge Da Kim was already forgetting about Gina Park. She was just another black criminal he had removed from society. He had sentenced 12 of them this year alone. It gave him satisfaction to know he was keeping the colony pure. His assistant entered with a datapad. Sir, your next case has been reassigned to Judge Yoon. What? Why? Kim demanded. Mayor's orders, the assistant said nervously. Actually, all your cases for the next week have been reassigned. Kim frowned. On what grounds? The order just says pending review, the assistant explained. Ridiculous. Kim snapped. Get me a direct line to the mayor's office. Sir, the assistant hesitated. There's something else. Admiral Kang from Coalition Headquarters has requested all records from today's trial involving Gina Park. Kim's face paled slightly. The Coalition rarely involved itself in local court matters. Something wasn't right. Send the records, he said slowly. And tell me immediately if there are any other unusual requests. After his assistant left, Kim pulled up Gina Park's file again. What was special about this case? She was just another black who thought the rules didn't apply to her. Nothing more. But as night fell over Novus Colony, the wheels of a plan years in the making were already turning. And Judge Da Kim's world was about to be turned upside down. Mayor Jin Lee stood at the large window of his office, looking out at Novus Colony. The city lights spread out below him like stars fallen to the ground. He had helped build this place from nothing 30 years ago. Now it was home to over 1 million people, both regular humans and those with genetic enhancements like his daughter Gina. His aide, Yuma, entered the room quietly. "Sir, the video of Gina's trial has been sent to all the news networks. It's spreading fast." Jin nodded without turning around. "And the special parts?" "We made sure the cameras caught Judge Kim's face when he talked about black designations," Yuna said. The hatred in his eyes is clear for everyone to see. Jin finally turned to face her. "Show me the public reaction." Yuna touched her tablet, and large screens lit up around the office. Each showed different news channels and social media feeds. People across the colony and even on Earth were talking about the trial. Most were angry about the harsh sentence. 125 years for taking medicine her daughter needed. "This is not justice," one woman said on a popular news show. "Judge Kim has gone too far this time," said another commentator. "Even if she took the medicine without permission, the normal sentence would be a few years at most." Jin walked to his desk and sat down heavily. "What about the hospital payment records?" "They've been recovered and verified," Yuna said. "The system error has been fixed. 5 other patients had the same problem that night, but only Gina was arrested." "And Sue?" Jin asked, his voice softer now. "Your granddaughter is doing well. The medicine is working. She's asking a lot of questions about her mother." Jin closed his eyes briefly. "I've kept them both at arm's length for so long. For their protection, I told myself. Maybe I was just a coward." "You did what you thought was right," Yuma said gently. "And now you're fixing a broken system." Jin's eyes hardened again. 3 years. For 3 years, I've been gathering evidence against Kim and the others, watching them sentence black designations to longer jail time for the same crimes, watching them destroy families. My own daughter volunteered to be part of this trap, and I let her. She knew the risks, Yuna reminded him. Gina believed in this cause enough to put herself in danger. Jin nodded and pressed a button on his desk. A hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a room filled with screens and data files. "This is my real work for the past 3 years," he said. "Every case Judge Kim has handled, every black he has sentenced unfairly, every piece of evidence that shows his hatred." Yuna's eyes widened as she scanned the information. "There are hundreds of cases." "Yes, and Gina's will be the last." Jin stood up straight, looking every bit the powerful mayor he was. "Now we move to phase 2. He touched a control on his desk, and a secure communication channel opened. A stern-faced man in a coalition military uniform appeared on the main screen. "Admiral Kang," Jin said with a nod. "Mayor Lee," the admiral replied. "I watched the trial recording. It's exactly as bad as you warned us." "This isn't just about one judge," Jin said. "It's systematic across our colony's courts. BLA6 receive sentences that are, on average, 3 times longer than normal humans for the same crimes." Admiral Kang frowned. "The Coalition created the Black Designation Program to help humans adapt to harsh planets. These people are heroes, not criminals." "Try telling that to Judge Kim," Jin said bitterly. "To him, and many others, genetic modifications make you less human, not more." "The audit team is ready," Admiral Kang said. "We can have them on Novus by tomorrow morning." Jin nodded. "Good. And the special order?" "Signed by the Coalition Council this morning. Once we have proof, we can remove all compromised judges immediately. No appeals." "Thank you, old friend," Jin said. "I believe it's time for that audit we discussed." After the call ended, Jin stared at the now blank screen. He had set everything in motion. There was no going back now. "Sir," Yuna said hesitantly, "what about Gina?" "She's already been transferred to the Erebus transport ship." Jin's smile was cold. "Don't worry. The ship's captain works for me. Gina will never reach Erebus." In a small private room aboard the prison transport ship, Gina Park sat on a metal bench. Unlike the other prisoners, she was not in restraints. The door opened, and the ship's captain entered. "We're in orbit now," Captain Min said. "Your father's plan is working perfectly. The public outrage is growing by the hour." Gina nodded. "And my daughter? Safe with your father. The medicine worked. She's recovering well." Gina let out a long breath. That was all that really mattered to her. "How much longer do I have to stay here?" "Just 2 more days," Captain Min said. "The coalition audit team arrives tomorrow. Once they gather enough evidence against Kim, you'll be officially rescued during a prisoner transfer." Gina leaned her head against the cool metal wall. "I never thought I'd become the face of black rights. I just wanted to live quietly with my daughter." "Sometimes history chooses us," Min said. "Your case is already changing things. Even some non-modified humans are protesting in the streets. Have any of Kim's other victims been helped yet?" Min nodded. "The coalition has put a hold on all transfers to labor colonies. Every case Kim handled in the past 5 years will be reviewed." Gina closed her eyes. "Good. Then this was worth it." After the captain left, Gina pulled out a small holoprojector she had been allowed to keep. It showed a 3-dimensional image of Sue laughing and playing in their small apartment. It had been recorded just weeks before Sue got sick. "I'll be home soon," Gina whispered to the image. "And things will be better for both of us." Judge Kim sat in his home office, surrounded by data files. Something strange was happening. 3 of his Bilek-related cases from the past month had been reopened for review, and now all his current cases had been reassigned. His communication device chimed. Kim answered it quickly, hoping for answers. "This is Park from Court Administration," said a nervous voice. "I thought you should know. Coalition officers were in the records department today. They were copying all your case files." Kim felt cold sweat form on his forehead. "All of them? Or just specific ones?" "Everything related to black designations, going back 5 years." Kim ended the call and sat in silence for a long moment. Then he began deleting files from his private system. Notes and comments he had made about black defendants, things that showed his true feelings about them. As he worked, a news alert appeared on his screen. He froze when he saw Gina Park's face looking back at him. "The case of Gina Park has sparked widespread protests across Nova's colony," the reporter was saying. "New evidence suggests Park had actually paid for the medicine she was accused of stealing, but a system error lost the record of payment. This calls into question the extremely harsh 125-year sentence handed down by Judge Kim." Kim turned off the news and tried to think. This was just one case. They couldn't prove a pattern from one case. But if they looked deeper, if they found his private notes. His door chime rang, startling him badly. When he checked the security camera, he saw 2 coalition officers in formal uniforms standing outside. Kim straightened his clothes, trying to appear calm, and went to answer the door. "Judge Kim?" the first officer asked. "Yes," Kim said stiffly. "We're from Coalition Judicial Oversight. We need to ask you some questions about the case of Gina Park." Kim's mouth went dry. "I sentenced many people. I can't be expected to remember every case." "This would be the black designation you sentenced to 125 years yesterday," the officer said coldly, "for taking medicine her daughter needed." "Ah, yes, that one." Kim tried to sound casual. "A clear case of theft and breaking of security protocols. We have new evidence that suggests otherwise," the second officer said. "We'd like you to come with us to review it." Kim knew he had no choice. "Of course. Let me get my coat." As he turned to get his coat, his personal comm unit beeped with a message. He glanced at it quickly. It was from an unknown sender. The message was simple. "Check who Gina Park's father is. You've made a terrible mistake." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. What did that mean? And what else didn't he know about prisoner number 7425? Gina Park. Judge Kim sat stiffly in a small room at the Coalition Enforcement Office. The walls were plain gray, and there was only a simple table with 3 chairs. He had been waiting for 20 minutes, and his patience was wearing thin. The door finally opened. Admiral Kang entered, followed by another man. Kim stood up quickly, recognizing the second man instantly. "Mayor Lee," Kim said in surprise. "What are you doing here?" Mayor Jin Lee did not answer. He simply placed a thick folder on the table and sat down. Admiral Kang sat beside him. "Please, sit, Judge Kim," Admiral Kang said. Kim sat down slowly, his eyes moving between the 2 men. Something was very wrong. "Do you know why you're here?" Admiral Kang asked. "I assume it's about the Park woman," Kim said, trying to sound confident, "but I don't understand why the mayor would be involved in a simple criminal case." Jin Lee opened the folder and spread out several photos. They showed Gina Park at different ages, as a baby, a child, a teenager, and finally, as she looked now. "Judge Kim," Jin said quietly, "I want to tell you a story. 30 years ago, I helped found this colony. I had a wife and a baby daughter. When my wife died, I had to make a choice. I was the colony's leader with many enemies. To protect my daughter, I kept our relationship secret." Kim looked at the photos, a cold feeling growing in his stomach. "My daughter grew up not knowing I was watching over her," Jin continued. "She believed I had died with her mother. When she was old enough, she chose to get biologic genetic modifications to help build the outer sections of our colony. The area is too toxic for normal humans." Kim's mouth went dry as he began to understand. "For her service," Jin said, his voice growing harder, "my daughter was treated like a second-class citizen when she had a child of her own. That girl, my granddaughter, faced the same prejudice." Jin pushed forward a photo of Gina standing with her lawyer in court. "3 days ago, you sentenced my daughter, Gina Park, to 125 years in a labor colony," Jin said, each word like ice, "for taking medicine that she had already paid for, medicine her daughter needed to live." Kim's face had gone pale. I had no idea she was your daughter." "Would it have mattered?" Admiral Kang asked sharply. "Should justice depend on who your family is?" Kim said nothing. Jin pulled out more papers from the folder. "For 3 years, I've been tracking your cases, Judge Kim. You sentenced 48 black designations during that time. Their average sentence was 22 years. For non-modified humans committing the same crimes, the average was 4 years. The law gives judges discretion in sentencing," Kim said weakly. "Not for prejudice," Admiral Kang said. "The Coalition created the Black Key program to help humanity survive on harsh planets. These people are heroes. They chose to change their bodies to build our colonies, and you've been punishing them for it." Jin stood up suddenly, his anger finally showing. "My daughter volunteered for this. We set up the perfect case to expose you. The medicine was paid for. The payment record was deliberately hidden, with the hospital's help. The security cameras were positioned to catch your reactions, your hatred." Kim felt sick. It was a trap. "Justice is a trap only for the guilty," Jin said coldly. "Every word you spoke, every unfair charge you added, was recorded and is now being broadcast across the Coalition network." The door opened again. A young woman entered, carrying a data pad. Kim recognized her as the mayor's aide. "Sir," she said to Jin, "the Coalition Council has just voted. All of Judge Kim's B-like-related cases are to be reviewed immediately. Those sentenced to labor colonies are being returned for new trials." Jin nodded. "Thank you, Yuma." "This is illegal," Kim protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "You can't overturn legal sentences based on assumptions about my motivations." Admiral Kang smiled without warmth. "We have your private notes, Judge Kim. The ones you tried to delete last night. Your personal comments about black designations make your prejudice very clear." Kim seemed to shrink in his chair. Your daughter, he said to Jin. Is she really on her way to Erebus? No, Jin said. She never left orbit. Captain Min works for me. A knock at the door interrupted them. Yuna answered it, then turned to Jin with a smile. Sir, your daughter is here. Jin's stern face softened instantly. Send her in. The door opened wider, and Gina Park walked in. She wore simple civilian clothes, not a prison uniform. Her eyes locked with Kim's for a moment, then moved to her father. It worked, she said simply. Jin nodded and did something that shocked Judge Kim. The powerful, dignified mayor walked quickly to Gina and hugged her tightly. I'm sorry I asked this of you, Jin said softly. I volunteered, Gina reminded him. For all the others who didn't have a mayor for a father. Kim watched them, finally understanding the full extent of what had happened. You used your own daughter as bait, he said to Jin. You risked sending her to a labor colony to trap me. Jin turned to Kim, his arm still around Gina's shoulders. There was no risk. We had fail-safes at every step. But yes, we needed a perfect case, one so clearly unjust that no one could defend it. And we needed someone brave enough to stand in that courtroom and take your hatred. But why? Kim asked, genuinely confused. Why go to all this trouble? Because writing reports and filing complaints wasn't working. Gina answered, because hundreds of my fellow BLACs are suffering in labor colonies right now for minor crimes. Because my daughter deserves to grow up in a world where her genetic code doesn't determine her worth. Admiral Kang stood up. Judge Da Kim, by authority of the Coalition Council, you are hereby removed from your position. You will face charges of judicial misconduct, abuse of power, and civil rights violations. 2 coalition officers entered the room and stood on either side of Kim. This isn't just about me, Kim said desperately. Many judges feel the same way. Black designations are changing what it means to be human. They're dangerous. No, Jin said firmly. They're the future. Our colonies need humans who can adapt to new worlds. What's dangerous is your fear of difference. As the officers led Kim away, he stopped at the door and looked back at Gina. I still believe you broke the law, he said. Gina met his gaze steadily. And I still believe my daughter needed medicine. After Kim was gone, Admiral Kang turned to Jin and Gina. Phase 3 begins tomorrow. We'll start reviewing all cases involving black designations from the past 5 years. Not just Kim's cases, all of them. Jin nodded. And the new laws. The Coalition Council is drafting them now, Kang confirmed. Genetic discrimination will be explicitly forbidden in the justice system. Gina looked tired but satisfied. What about Sue? Can I see her now? She's waiting for you at my home, Jin said with a smile. I think it's time she got to know her grandfather properly. As they walked out of the Coalition building together, reporters and cameras were waiting. Flashes of light surrounded them as Jin, Gina, and Admiral Kang emerged. Mayor Lee, is it true Judge Kim has been arrested? Ms. Park, how does it feel to have your conviction overturned? Admiral Kang, will the Coalition be taking over the colony's courts? Jin raised his hand, and the crowd quieted. Today we exposed a serious injustice in our legal system. Judge Kim is just one example of the prejudice that has infected our courts. But this is not about one judge or one case. He put his arm around Gina's shoulders. This is about building a colony, a society where justice is truly blind, where genetic modifications created to help humanity survive are not used as reasons to discriminate. A reporter pushed forward. Mayor Lee, many people are just learning that Gina Park is your daughter. Why did you keep this relationship secret? Jin looked at Gina with regret in his eyes. Fear. I told myself I was protecting her from my political enemies. But perhaps I was also protecting my political career from prejudice against her black status. That was wrong, and I won't hide anymore. Another reporter called out, Ms. Park, Will you be suing the colony for false imprisonment? Gina shook her head. I don't want money. I want change. I want all BLECKs who were unfairly sentenced to be released and given new trials. I want new laws that protect genetic diversity, not punish it. As they walked toward the mayor's car, Admiral Kang leaned close to Jin. You know this is just the beginning. There will be resistance to these changes. Jin nodded. Yes, but we've made our point in a way no one can ignore. My daughter made sure of that. She's remarkable, Kang said, watching Gina speak confidently to the reporters. You must be proud. I am, Jin said simply. Now I just need to make up for 20 years of being a secret father instead of a real one. As the car door closed behind them, shutting out the noise of the crowd, Gina looked at her father. Take me to Sue, she said. Everything else can wait. 1 month had passed since Judge Kim's arrest. The large meeting hall in the Novus Colony Government Center was packed with people. At the front, a long table was set up with microphones. Mayor Jin Lee sat in the center, with Gina Park on his right and Admiral Kang on his left. Jin stood up, and the room went quiet. Thank you all for coming today, he began. 1 month ago, we exposed a terrible injustice in our legal system. Today, I'm proud to announce the results of our work since then. He gestured to Admiral Kang, who stood up with a datapad in his hand. The coalition review is complete, Kang announced. We examined 1,237 cases involving black designations from the past 5 years. Of those, 822 showed clear evidence of unfair sentencing. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. As of today, Kang continued, all 342 BLECKs who were serving time in labor colonies have been returned to Novus for new trials. Judge Kim was not alone in his prejudice. 12 other judges have been removed from the bench and face similar charges. Jin stepped forward again. This was never about just one case or one judge. This was about fixing a broken system. And today, we take the next step. He pulled out a document from a folder. This is the new Genetic Equality Act, just approved by the Colony Council. It makes it illegal to use genetic status as a factor in legal proceedings, housing, education, or employment. The crowd erupted in applause. In the front row, a small girl with dark eyes like Gina's clapped loudly. Sue Park was fully recovered now, and she beamed with pride as she watched her mother and grandfather. Gina stood up next. The room fell silent again. Over the past month, she had become the face of the movement for black rights. When I agreed to be part of my father's plan, she said in a clear voice, I didn't know how big it would become. I just wanted to help other BLECKs who didn't have a powerful father to protect them. She looked down at her daughter, then back at the crowd. For too long, those of us with black designations have lived as second-class citizens. We modify our bodies to help build this colony. We made ourselves stronger to work in places too toxic for others. And in return, we were feared and punished. She paused, her eyes moving across the room. That ends today, not just because of new laws, but because people have finally seen the truth. We are not a threat. We are part of humanity's future among the stars. More applause filled the room. Jin smiled at his daughter with pride. A reporter stood up with a question. Miss Park, you've been offered a position on the new Equal Justice Commission. Will you accept it? Gina nodded. Yes, the commission will oversee all the new trials and make sure our justice system treats everyone fairly, regardless of genetic status. Another reporter called out, what about Judge Kim and the others? When will their trials begin? Admiral Kang answered, they will be tried on Earth, away from local influences. Their trials begin next month. As the questions continued, Sue slipped away from her seat and made her way to the side door of the hall. Outside in the hallway, a surprising figure waited, Judge Kim, under guard by 2 coalition officers. Sue stopped and stared at him. Kim looked much different now. Older, tired, his fancy judge clothes replaced by a simple gray jumpsuit. "Hello," Sue said, curious but not afraid. "You're the man who tried to send my mom away." Kim looked uncomfortable. "Yes, I'm waiting to be transferred to Earth for my trial." "Why did you hate us so much?" Sue asked simply. "VLAC case. I mean." Kim seemed surprised by the direct question from such a young child. "I don't. It's complicated." "My mom says hate is never really complicated," Sue replied. "She says people just make it seem that way to avoid looking at themselves." Before Kim could respond, the door opened and Gina appeared. She froze when she saw Kim. "Sue," she said quickly, "go back inside with grandfather." "It's okay, Mom," Sue said. "We were just talking." Gina came to stand beside her daughter, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "What are you doing here, Kim?" "They're transferring me to the spaceport," he said quietly. "I asked to speak with you first." Gina's face showed no emotion. "Say what you need to say." Kim looked down at his hands. "I believe I was protecting society. I thought BLACKs were dangerous, that your genetic changes made you less human somehow. And now?" Gina asked. "Now I'm facing 20 years in prison," Kim said bitterly. Then he sighed. "But that's not what I wanted to say. I wanted to tell you that I've been reading about the Blackie program, how it was created to help build the colonies, how many of you died testing the early modifications." He finally looked up at her. "I was wrong. Not just legally wrong, morally wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that." Gina studied his face for a long moment. "Justice isn't about making you feel better, Kim. It's about fixing what's broken. If you truly understand what you did, then help us fix it. Tell the truth at your trial. Explain how the prejudice works." Kim nodded slowly. "I will." The guards moved forward, indicating it was time to go. As they led Kim away, Sue called after him. "My grandfather says even bad people can change if they really want to." Kim looked back, a sad smile on his face. "Your grandfather is a wise man." Later that evening, Jin's home overlooked the whole colony. The three of them, Jin, Gina, and Sue, sat on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the dome of the colony in shades of orange and gold. "Will things really change now?" Gina asked quietly, while Sue played with a new toy nearby. Jin sipped his tea. "Some things already have. Applications for the Blackie program have increased by 30% this month. People are seeing the value of what you do." "And the other colonies?" Gina asked. "This problem isn't just on Novus. Admiral Kang is taking our new laws to the Coalition Council next week," Jin said. "He believes they'll adopt them for all human settlements." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jin spoke again, his voice softer. "I've been thinking about stepping down as mayor." Gina turned to him in surprise. "Why? You've done so much good." "And there's more good I want to do," Jin said, "but not as a politician. I want to start a foundation to help Black families. And," he hesitated, "I want to make up for lost time with my family." Gina reached out and took her father's hand. "We have time now." Sue came running over, excited. "Mom, grandfather, look what's on the news." She held up a small tablet. On the screen was an announcement. "Coalition Council votes to your ENAME Black designation. New name to honor genetic pioneers without stigma." Jin read it and smiled. "It seems our work is having an effect beyond Novus." Sue climbed onto his lap, something that would have been unthinkable just a month ago. "What will they call us now?" "I don't know," Jin said, pulling both Sue and Gina into a hug. "But whatever name they choose, people will say it with respect." 6 months later, a new memorial stood in the center of Novus Colony's main plaza. It showed a Black man and woman, their faces turned upward toward the stars. The plaque at the base read, "In honor of the pioneers, those who changed their bodies to build our future among the stars. Their sacrifice and courage made our colonies possible. Gina stood before it, now officially the head of the Equal Justice Commission. She wore the new designation patch on her collar, no longer black, but PIONAER. A woman approached her, hesitant. "Miss Park, I'm sorry to bother you." Gina turned with a smile. "It's no bother. My daughter wants to apply for genetic modification," the woman said. "She wants to be like you. I was afraid before, but now." "Now," Gina prompted gently. The woman straightened her shoulders. "Now I'd be proud to have a PIONER in the family." From across the plaza, Jen watched his daughter speaking with the woman. His granddaughter Sue stood beside him, holding his hand. "Your mother changed the world," Jen said softly. Sue looked up at him, her eyes bright with the wisdom of children. "No, grandfather. The world was always ready to change. Mom just showed them how." As night fell on Nova's colony, the memorial lit up from within, a beacon visible throughout the city.